In fact, during pandemic, poverty rate has actually increased. Now it stands at 860 million, which is a huge number.
Right.
And I should say about 20 million people are going hungry every day. That's also not acceptable.
A very warm welcome to next episode of Ink and Insights. I'm extremely privileged to have a very close friend of mine, Pradeep Baisakh, today at my show. Pradeep, thank you so much for being a part of. You came to Nepal, and then I could get hold of you. And thank you for your time.
Thanks. It's an opportunity for me also.
Briefly, I'd like to talk about Pradeep. Presently, he is an Asia coordinator for Global Call to Action Against Poverty, and he's been former development journalist, and he's into the development sector for the last 2 decades now. He is also an author. His book, Faces of Inequality, has won 2 awards from Parichaya Foundation. It was awarded, as well as he was given a Kalinga Lit award. Pradeep, it's such an honor to have you in my show, and we'll talk on a range of issues. And I'm sure that your expertise will draw out a lot of many things from your expertise. This is your first time in Kathmandu, isn't it, Pradeep?
Yes.
So did you get a chance to go around places?
Yeah, I mean, it's been. I mean, it's like this. I have roamed around the world. I have not been to Kathmandu. It's strange.
Right.
I find it difficult to believe that I have not been to Nepal.
Right.
But anyway, it's a lovely place all the time. For Indians, Nepal is always close to our heart.
Right.
And Nepali people are like brothers and sisters.
Right.
And I was actually extremely happy to be here. Meetings were there. That's over. I took around to see lovely places in Kathmandu, some World Heritage Sites in Patan and one in Bhaktapur. The Darbar, all those which have been declared as World Heritage Sites. They're awesome, I should say. They have been preserved. That's very good that the government has preserved them.
Right.
And I also today went to Chandragiri Hills to see the mountains. That's also nice to have those cable car ride, or something they call it. And to see the temple there.
Right.
And see the whole view. It's really lovely.
Wonderful.
Lovely country, in fact.
Right. Thank you, Pradeep. Before I get inside, before we talk about your book, can you please shed light on some of the work that you are doing right now in terms of, the action against poverty, that organizations and its, networks and all the stuff?
Sure. So we have been working, Sumit, on fighting inequality and poverty in all these years. 2004, we started Global Call to Action Against Poverty. This is a global campaign, civil society campaign, which works on inequality and poverty. And it's around sustainable development goals mostly. And we are a huge network, civil society, which present in 66 countries. We are like really huge. 11,000-12,000 small and mid-sized NGOs who do work in their places and then put together energy, take this work at the grassroots to the global. So we are in a way connecting grassroots to the global, raising these issues of inequality and poverty all through. So our unique character of ours is the issue of inequality in India or Nepal. If somebody is in that poor category, that voice we take to the UN systems in the New York. So we do quite a lot of work on that, and constantly being engaged in the process of sustainable development goal, Agenda 2030, and have tried to influence the process from a point of view of most marginalized groups.
Right. So how do you see this scenario right now in terms of a lot of reports suggest that there's been decline in the poverty rate and all this stuff, but we see prevalent it almost everywhere.
In fact, during pandemic, poverty rate has actually increased. Now it stands at 860 million, which is a huge number.
Right.
And I should say about 20 million people are going hungry every day. That's also not acceptable.
Right.
Look, we are not dearth of resources. We have huge resources. See the kind of economic growth that has happened across the world. And now you see it in the global south also, in India, in South Asian countries, and it's
Right.
the wealth is created. The problem is that wealth is not distributed properly. It's lopsided distribution. Most of the wealth go to the rich and elite. That the famous 99 versus 1 debate you have heard.
Right.
And then 1% takes most of the resources, keeping behind very small resources for the 99%.
Right.
During the pandemic, an interesting thing has happened.
Right.
During the pandemic, we thought that economy is going down. That's also true. There's economic slump. But then resource has been created. Later, we found out that the resource that has been created, 2/3 of those resources has gone to top 1%. And only 1/3 of the resources have gone to 99%.
Right.
This means there is an extreme form of inequality which has come during pandemic.
Right.
On one hand, when rich have gone too far richer, and we have added more poor people into the list, those kind of systems are not acceptable.
Right.
That's something which we have been raising.
Right.
So in terms of inequality, I should say we are not doing great. We are rather falling apart.
Right. Right.
The systems which are responsible for global inequality, or for that matter, inequality within the countries. Look, there is also inequality between global north and global south. Rich countries are richer.
Right.
Then we know the state of affairs in African countries, in some of the South Asian countries.
True.
That's one level of inequality, global inequality. And then that's another level within the country. We see that there are people who are getting richer, and there are also a chunk of people who are below poverty line, and they don't live a life of dignity. So we have all these been raging on one hand the issues, the faces. That's the basis. We have a faces of inequality campaign in Global Call to Action Against Poverty. Where so we told that we will just not raise the issue of inequality. We'll also bring those people who are in the poverty ladder. So we will highlight them also. Best, in fact, this book was inspired by that campaign.
Right. Right.
I brought this title
From there.
in a way borrowing from
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And I have brought in some of the stories of poor and marginalized people here. The political and economic systems are essentially responsible for this. It's not that the problems are not visible. Problems are visible not only to us, it's visible to the world now. Everybody.
Right.
A person at the top also knows. It's also not that the people don't know it, know the reasons, they know it.
Right.
Only there is lack of will to address it.
Right.
Nobody wants to lose the power, nobody wants to wield the wealth.
Right. So do you feel that there has been this another side of debate as well, wherein sometimes it's said that, there was a time wherein there was a lot of voice in favor of, poor people, and there was anti-poverty sort of campaign, which was at the top. Now the context seems to have changed, and these issues seems to have taken a backseat, right? So where does the context also led to sort of deterioration of wherein people are really not interested in taking this forward, this kind of issues?
That's apparently a change because of the change of our political system. I told you political economic system. Look, the way democracy functions, what we have been seeing in the years, initially at one point we believed that, okay, people probably have control over democracy, the government that we elect. Eventually we learned that no, we're just poor people having one vote.
Right.
Nothing beyond that.
Right.
And that vote can also be manipulated by parties.
Right.
Using different means. They can divide us and rule based on caste, religion, race, and they can use unnecessary issues to divide people. And people are also, it's sometimes we say, we get the government we deserve. It's not all fault of the political parties and establishment and the people who control it. We should also take a bit of fault that. Look around and see how policy is framed. It's mostly corporate influences the policies. government, the political parties get political funding from the corporate, and that's essentially determines.
Right.
It may not quite come to the open, for it may not quite be known to everybody, but that's how it works. The nexus between the political parties and the corporate is very high, and it's increasing.
That's a global trend right now.
That's everywhere, almost everywhere.
Right.
Because the political parties are almost kind of controlled by corporate and are putting in policy which are favorable to corporate, that's where the inequality has been exacerbated. It's time that they learn it. Inequality cannot go on and on and on. There will be social tensions. It's already happening. It's already happening.
Right.
If there is extreme inequality, social tensions will happen.
Right.
You will find, protest here and there, and see the way climate change is also happening.
Right.
It's the greed. When the greed takes over, then at one point you are unable to manage it.
Sure.
And my understanding is this is the tipping point.
Right.
You reverse this trend. Otherwise, you are actually entering into a very dangerous zone.
Right. So, Pradeep, you also look after the entire Asia. So, could you also shed some light on the status of the poverty and inequality in our South Asia region? Where do we stand?
Look, officially, the poverty figures are going down in most of the countries, which is okay. That's quite some good sign. But what happens is, many people won't also agree to the government official figures.
Right.
The hidden poverty there. And then poverty has also been now redefined, just not poverty in terms of income, but also multidimensional poverty.
Right.
Right. It used to be how much calorie of food you are intaking. Now
Sure.
the poverty has been redefined. You have access to health, you have access to education, you have access to basic. Look, everybody has a right to the life of dignity, the minimum living standard, which doesn't snatch away dignity from you. If we understand that as a poverty, then I don't think we are doing great.
Right.
In terms of government figures, probably then they are saying okay, and that's also true that the wealth that has been created has also partially reduced the level of poverty. But then now pandemic has come and the new poverty, the new set of poor people have been added. So it's, I'm not really happy with just saying that we have poverty figures were reduced by before COVID, at least what the government was claiming.
Right.
That doesn't actually give a complete picture.
Right. So also, how strong or weak the coalition that's among some of the civil society organizations in South Asia right now in terms of addressing this issue?
I've been working in this field for so many years.
Right.
Civil society does raise voice. They are also strong in a way.
Right.
Strong in two things. One, bringing the issue to the fore. That we have been doing. We're also mobilizing people around it. Right. But whether this has got eyes with the government is $1 million question. Whether the government listens to us, implements our suggestions, that's also a question.
Important question. Yeah.
Look, out of 10, they may pick up one and implement it and say, okay, we're doing your work. But the whole character has to change. What we are saying is, you bring in transformative reforms.
Right.
Just not some reform here and there and giving little more resources to the... Look, the social protection level of South Asia is not great.
Okay.
This is the time we are demanding now, after the pandemic, that's something which learning has come, that you should at least have enough money, pump the public money for universal health coverage.
Right.
If we had that, we probably could have saved a lot of lives which we lost during pandemic. That's big learning.
Sure.
Second is, what we are demanding is universal social protection also. Look, you have resources. You invest them, create a base of social protection. So the poor, the elderly, the indigenous groups, the Dalits, the people with disabilities, the women are not left behind.
Right.
Yeah. That's where governance is important.
True.
Yeah. And then we're also offering solutions. Tax the rich, increase the tax base. Another tax which we are now advocating is wealth tax. For example, you are a son of a billionaire father.
Okay.
Your father transfers all the billion to you. All of a sudden, you become a billionaire. Are you not supposed to pay a little bit tax to the government?
Right.
That you became a billionaire.
Right.
And I am a son of a poor farmer. What I inherit is poverty. Then the cycle of inequality continues.
Right.
That's what we're saying. You impose a modest in wealth tax. There's so many rich people.
Let's talk something about your book as well, Pradeep. What is this book all about, Faces of Inequality?
Okay.
I mean, it suggests that, there are a lot of cases of inequality you have brought in, but could you please delve into it?
Let me. I've been a development journalist all through.
Yeah.
So I picked up I've consciously gone to villages to see people, how they're living and all. And I picked up the stories of poverty. The first story that you will see is the story of Jintu Boria, that's of starvation death. We are now sophisticatedly saying is hunger-related death. Starvation because probably has got into controversy. Whatever it is, the person who is dying of hunger, dying, not having food,
Right.
You call it hunger death or starvation death. Whatever you call it, that's a death which you are supposed not to go through.
Right.
If a person is dying, I'll not say it's his fault. It's the government's fault. Right. If we have policies for that way, it's not implemented. That's one chapter which I have done. Then kindly bringing in the food insecurity among the people, which has led to deaths. Then we have issues around migration, distress migration. We have issues around farmer suicide. And right to information and all the many other issues.
Right. So, what is this about distress migration, and can you also shed some lights on farmer suicide?
Yeah.
What is the sort of trend in India right now?
Look, on farmer suicide, what the story that I have done was done before 5 years. There's some people who have committed suicide. You remember, though, that time P. Sainath has also brought in massive farmer suicide, which was done in India. He continuously wrote about it, and he was also quoting the government figure. And over a period of time, what has happened in India particularly is, while you adapted for economic liberalization in 1991,
True.
there is it's my understanding, I'm sure it's understanding of many of the pro-people journalists, that there is a conscious attempt to neglect the agri sector. Normally what happens, if industrialization is there, it is expected that people will leave the primary sector and come to the secondary and tertiary sector. That's the theory which we have studied.
Right.
That normal happens. But then if you go deep into it, it may probably sound like if you do not neglect the agri sector, then people will not be forced into informal sector in cities that we need them.
Right. Right.
Probably consciously, unconsciously, whatever, or that's the pattern of capitalistic development, I do not know. You will ask those big economists who are sitting there. But there is a conscious negligence of agriculture. Agriculture has not been promoted.
This is in India as well.
India as well. India as well means you are saying that in Nepal that also
happens. I'm just looking at the trend.
India, it has happened.
Yeah.
And it has not only led to mass outflux of people from agri,
right.
And it's not that the people who are coming out of agriculture, you are giving a class 1 job somewhere in a private company. It doesn't happen like that, right?
Yeah.
There are poor people who are uneducated who will continue to work on their paddy fields.
True.
If it is not properly managed, that's the reason why people have committed suicide. Died by suicide, attempted suicide. They have been forced to borrow from private lenders, from government. Government borrowing system doesn't work.
Right.
And they have to turn to private lenders, then the extortion. There are also microfinances which have come in between. It is not now that they have been tamed a little bit, but there was a time when poor people need, they go to microfinances, and they are so extortive mechanism
Absolutely.
that you end up, and then the issues of crop loss, they are not covered. What does that person do? He has some loan on his head. He is expected to repay the loan by selling the paddy, and paddy, that crop is fed.
Right.
Government is not covering. What does the person do? There are a series of suicides there. One such case, it's a series of cases I also did in the book.
Right.
And now also things have not changed much. We are also hearing the cases of farmer suicide across country.
Okay.
We are even that.
So these cases are documented between what time frame?
This is documented between 2009 to 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, the book was published in 2021.
Right.
So I've kind of taken my writing during the decade.
So
2009-10 to 2020.
And the cases are sort of covered from the entire country, or
no, it's mostly entire country.
Entire country.
Some of from my province, Odisha, but it has also been covered from entire country. Yeah.
Right.
Farmer suicide, the one that I did is from my province, but I have analyzed the whole issue of farmers agri from a national point of view.
Do you think post-COVID context, there's sort of inclination from the government side to have a relook and to sort of re-emphasize on the importance of the agriculture given the change in the context,
Government has always claimed that we are doing great for the farmers. The question down there, then they should understand, if you have done great for the farmers,
right,
why then there is farmer suicide?
True.
They're saying, well, we are doing great. We have crop insurance. We have provided loans. So all that they are doing. I mean, they should sit down, talk to people like us,
right,
and many experts to listen to the farmers. Very recently, we had farmers protest. It went on year-long protest. People lost their lives.
Yeah, we saw that on news.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
If you are so sensitive to the farmers, in the day once you should have sat with them, asked why you are protesting, what we think we are doing good for you, what's the problem? Sit down with them, discuss, solution will come. Only if you are willing to address them. Otherwise, do whatever you want to do.
So you think in years to come, I mean, there's also a debate on, the legitimacy of the civil society organization itself, the way it came into prominence during post-1990s and the way right now it's been situated. There are critics who say that civil society organizations are not, working enough to sort of pressurize the government to implement the kind of pro-people policies that's required. I mean, over a period of time, that legitimacy has gone down. Do you agree with that?
I mean, and people have said that.
Right.
Over a period of time, what I have seen of the civil society is there is a changing pattern. People actually in the civil society, in the localized NGO, have seen people work very hard. The NGO workers reach to the home where governments own streets and do the service and all. Look, NGO has also its limitations, right? NGOs work based on funding that they receive from foreign governments, for that matter, Indian philanthropies.
Right.
They also have limitations. And if nowadays the government has almost kind of stopped funding through different legislations, FCRA has been made strict, and then so how do the NGOs then thrive?
Right.
If the government probably wants that you just work on not questioning us, not questioning the structural aspects of poverty and inequality, you do something which is not a problem for us.
Right.
Then what the NGOs have to do, they will do it.
Yeah.
So many times it also depends what kind of situation you create in the country. Civil society is also part of the various, that's part of our democratic voice, right? It's part of our freedom of speech.
Right.
If you speak something against the government, if you are an enemy of government, then the democracy is also, the values of democracy also sliding.
True.
In such case, it becomes difficult for the NGOs to raise voice.
Right.
One of the reasons that's also not just in our region, that's across nowadays. I don't know why it is happening. We probably have to dig more into why the civic space is shrinking across. That's one of the topics that we are discussing at the global level.
Throughout the world.
Throughout the world, it's happening.
Yeah.
Civic space, the freedom of speech, press has also been throttled.
So, Pradeep, that's going to be my last questions to you. I mean, that's all related with the changing time and the context. Every institutions today are questions. Everything is in a state of flux, perhaps. Do you agree if I say that there's a need for civil society organization to relook and in terms of their approach and the strategy and redefine themselves in a way that could fit in with the changing context?
I do agree. On that, I strongly agree. It's for the civil society to raise actually voice, pitch their, make their voice much louder. Look, civil society is no adjunct to the government.
Sure.
It need not be fearing the government. We are in a very bad state insofar as our polity, economy, and society is concerned. Right. We are in a kind of emergency. For the civil society, it's necessary to reinvent that you actually put hard questions. If you do not raise the questions where many people are suffering in a really big way, then eventually you are also losing faith of the people that we are working with.
Yeah. You're losing that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, because you are also, because of various pressures, we are also toning ourselves down to protect our existence.
Right.
And eventually we are also losing our own constituency. If we are unable to bring the issues of the constituency that we work, and now we should put it really straightforward. And say what you are doing is wrong.
Right.
Let's put it that straight. In the process, you may lose funding and all. It's fine. But then this is the time that we raise our voice louder and louder.
Right.
Yeah.
And on a personal note, are you planning to write some of the other stuff right now? In terms of
I'm working. I'll not announce it, but I'm working on my second book.
Right.
Hoping to complete it 1 year. Let's see if it happens. You are also an author. It takes a lot of time to write books.
It does.
When you are a full-time, employee somewhere, you would do friend.
Yeah, you have to balance everything.
I'm struggling to complete the book in 1 year.
Yeah.
And probably hope to see you again then on my second book.
Sure. Absolutely. It's my honor, Pradeep. Thank you so much for your time once again.
Thanks,
Sumit.
That's been an opportunity.
Thanks.